乐，素则恒无声。Will the Sangha bring great virtue of compassion for the sake of this assembly and all living beings? Please turn the wonderful Dharma will to teach us how to relieve suffering and attain bliss and end birth and death and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Namo sadanto suchedoye alahadi samyao samputoshe.
Namo sadanto suchetoye alahati samyao sambuddhasye.
无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿觉如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered even in billions of eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Venerable Master and Dharma friends, welcome to our Sutra lecture today. My name is Heng. Today is Sunday, September 25th here in the Gold Coast of Queensland. It's Saturday, the 24th of September back in California. Wherever you are around the planet, welcome to our Sutra lecture. We're going to be looking into the Flower Garland Sutra's 20th chapter, Praises from a Palace in the Suyama Heaven. And I want to point out that that is not my halo over my head. That is actually Guanyin Bodhisattva's halo. So just to make sure nobody has any wrong ideas. I have not been sainted. So that's not, it's kind of nice. I can make it look like my halo here. The Heart Sutra here at Benogan Road, and a beautiful image of Guanyin Bodhisattva. Let me see, go the other way. There we go. Ah, yeah. We have some business to do. First of all, I'm going to share my screen again and return to our invocation slide. And here we go. Accompanied by a 110-year-old Farland banjo. This is the time that we invite spiritual presence. We ask the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, the Flower Garland Sutra, as well as the Dharma protectors and wholesome spirits to come and bless us. And one more piece of business to do, protocol to get us started, is to say that the Kombumeri people of the Ugambe language group practice their spiritual connections to land, to living beings, and to all creation here in this location for tens of thousands of years. And today we acknowledge them as traditional custodians of this land. We acknowledge them with gratitude as we share this land today, with sorrow for the costs of that sharing, and with hope that we can move to a place of justice and partnership together. We acknowledge their wisdom and their elders, past, present, and emerging, and acknowledge all First Nations peoples whose sovereignty was never ceded. You're hearing in the background some new neighbors that we kind of hope don't make their nests here. I'm going to sneeze. There we go. Maybe that sneeze scared them away. Noisy miners, they're, nice birds. They are territorial and they chase the other birds away. They have come, it is now spring, and they have returned. It's a toss-up whether the local Currawongs, who have lived here through the winter, will chase away the noisy miners. We'll see. Currawongs are pretty intimidating, and they have big long beaks, and they're strong, fast flyers. But the noisy miners are fierce in their own right. So anyway, yeah, birds have their stories. Humans have our issues with territoriality, don't we? So let's see now. We are about to begin. I wanted to express my appreciation for all the many hands and consciousnesses that come together to make these lectures possible. Today is a very busy day here at the Gold Coast Dharma Realm. It is school holiday, so our regular staff is, if you have kids, they're off on vacation. So we have other happy volunteers who fa da xin to translate from me into Chinese and into Vietnamese week after week, and to help run the live stream over to YouTube. We have also a Guanyin Bodhisattva recitation session happening here at GCDR this week. So that's why I'm here up in the bush in my cabin, lecturing from here. And we also have Rosh Hashanah. This is Jewish New Year in the Jewish calendar. So busy, busy time in the interfaith world. As we move into Libra and edge out of September bit by bit. So another 5 days and we will have reached October. So that's a big deal. All right. Now, let's get started with our text, and I'll tell the story first. This is the Flower Garland Sutra, the Avatamsika, known as the Huayanjing, and in Japanese called the Keigon Kyo. And the Avatamsika talks about the Bodhisattva path. And to get the whole story told took 21 days, they say, for the Buddha. And it included 9 stops at 7 different locations. 2 of those locations were repeat visits. And pouring myself some Dongding Oolong tea from Taiwan. And halfway along, chapter 19 and chapter 20, we found out about the Buddha's coming to the Suyama heaven. The Suyama heaven is heaven number 3 out of 6 in the desire realm. And the king of that heaven in chapter 19 prepared the place, made a special seat for the Buddha, and the Buddha came, and the Deva told him that this Buddha, our Buddha, was not the first one he'd witnessed. He had witnessed 10 Buddhas doing the same thing, speaking the same Dharma. And every time the Buddha came, he made that place the most auspicious, the luckiest place to be. So the Deva gives his appreciation of the Buddha coming. And so then the next part of the story happens with chapter 20. Chapter 20, 10 bodhisattvas show up. And their leader is called Forest of Merit and Virtue, Gongdelin Pusa. And that bodhisattva begins by kneeling in front of the Buddha and then praising him. And he gives actually 12 verses, not the usual 10, which is interesting. He gives 12 verses of praise. He sings 12 different verses, 12 different messages that talk about how rare and how special it is to have the Buddha show up and how much he appreciates being there. So then consecutively, 9 more bodhisattvas all take their turns and do the same thing. So we are ending, we have 2 more verses to go with the bodhisattva whose name is Forest of Remorse. Someone suggested it could be Forest of Humility, Canquelin Pusa. Humility humility is not doesn't express the fullness of what Canque means in Chinese. So a bit of that. But it's humility because this bodhisattva is in touch with all of the places he doesn't measure up to his own best standards. All the times he's fallen short, and yet continued, found the strength and the motivation to continue, to persevere, to take it all the way to the end, and not waver from his resolve to do the best he can. So, Canque Lin. Canque is they say it's a necessary state, it's a necessary attitude to have if you want to be a Buddha. Because the other side of the pendulum would be arrogance and pride, thinking that everything you do is perfect and nothing more needs to be done. You don't have to improve. You don't have to change. You don't have to strive to remove more of the ignorance that covers your nature. And of course, that's the end. There's no spiritual progress if you think you're already there. So Canque is a necessary component. People don't like to repent. They don't like to renew. They don't like to look within and repair. The way I understood it, that made sense to me, I was certainly one of those people. Why bother? Guys in particular. Just come on. Just keep going. You'll get there. There's no sense of you need to change. You need to make changes if you hope to arrive. The way I understood it was when it was that this act of renewing, repairing and renewing was like a bicycle wheel, which is to say, if you've ridden a bike, especially 10-speed with lighter gauge tires, sometimes, racing bikes have very thin tires. If you hit a curb with those tires, you can actually take the wheel, the metal part, not the rubber part, and twist it because of the impact of hitting the curb or finding a pothole. Oh my, if you hit a pothole, your bike tire can actually, it goes out of round, they say. It gets twisted, warped. So what do you have to do in order to keep going down the road? You have to take that bike tire and true it. True as a verb. You have to make it true. I don't know in Chinese, 令它真了，你要真这个真，真假的真，跟真那个脚踏车的轮胎，有没有这么一个动词真？ I don't know if that's a verb in Chinese, to true it, but in English you can true a wheel by slowly tightening the spokes, loosening the spokes until it's right back where it will roll again without like that. So that makes sense to me, that on the road of life, we bang into a lot of curbs just by getting through the day. We make mistakes. And so what do? Do you quit? Do you stop? Do you give up? Do you say, oh, blame somebody? Oh, not my fault. That curb just jumped in front of me. What do you know? It's like, well, people do. Even former presidents blame others entirely. So what a healthful, what a life-restoring function is the ability to say, yeah, it was my mistake, my bad. I could do it better. And you true the tire and shoom, continue. Down the road you go. So repentance is that function of truing up your bike tire so that your journey can continue and you can find the road again. So I like that thought. That makes sense to me. Okay, that's our bodhisattva, forest of bike tire truing. Bodhisattva, forest of remorse and repentance and renewal, who has 2 more verses to go. Let's share the screen. Is the screen being shared here? Come on now. Find. There we are. Window. Zoom meeting. The problem is full screen. When I go full screen, there we go. Yes. All right. I don't know who is that. Somebody is speaking out here in my neighborhood, and I'm not sure who that is. Okay, here's our bodhisattva. And he says, start right here. Make it nice and big. Okay, there we go. He says, Ru a che to yao, neng mie yi che du, you zhi yi ru shi, neng mie yu wu zhi. Just like the panacea agada herb can eradicate every kind of poison, someone with wisdom is the same way. Someone with wisdom in the same way can eradicate no wisdom. Okay, Chinese, please. Here we go. Ru, like, a, jie, to, jie, to, yao. Like the agada herb or medicine. Agada is a Sanskrit word, and it's one of the Indian medicine modalities, one of the healing modalities of Indian medicine called toxicology. It has to do with poisons. And certain herbs in Indian medicine can take care of all poisons. What kind of poisons? Well, snake bite, food poisoning, insect bite, things like, poison ivy, poison oak, things applied to the skin, things applied via fangs, things that you get because you eat them, all of those things that when they get into our bloodstream under the skin can make us very sick or kill us. The Agada version in Indian medicine can take care of that. In Chinese, they call it 不死药, the immortality, the anti-death. Is that or is an anti-death? Yeah, I don't know what that would be. Non-mortality? Immortality herb? Immortality means you live forever. This means that poison can't kill you. Okay, 不死药. That's what the agada is. What does it do? 能灭一切毒, can eradicate all kinds of toxins, all kinds of poisons. 有智亦如是. The possession of wisdom, having wisdom, is the same way. 能灭于无智. It does away with ignorance or the absence of wisdom. So, in English, just like the panacea meaning all cure-all, like the cure-all Agada herbs, can eradicate all kinds of poison, someone with wisdom in the same way eradicates no wisdom. So does that sound too simplistic for you? No, it's not. Here's one commentary to this suggested that when we apply this teaching to the mind ground, to your next thought and your awareness of your next thought, that's how it works. So if you have wisdom, you can use, what do you use? You use your Vajra sword we talked about. You use your Vajra vacuum cleaner, your Vajra broom, and sweep away false thinking, desires that rise up, thoughts that say, maybe I'll go ahead, maybe I'll try it once. And then you go, remember last time you tried it once, what happened? And you go, okay, right, just stick to the straight and narrow. One of my friends is an European expat who lives in China, and he is a longtime student of martial arts and also of the Dharma. And he has made a life for himself in China with his wife. One of the things he loves to do is go out and discover forgotten temples, of which there are many, many in China, because people have been building temples and monasteries in China for thousands of years. And some of them get renewed, some of them just get forgotten. So I won't give you his name, but he's an excellent writer, and he writes on Facebook about the tours that he makes, and sometimes they're overnight, sometimes they're 3 days, sometimes they're a week. And in my many trips to China, I have seen some of the temples that he writes about, and he is just a hiker. He goes out with his phone and discovers he first at home he reads about some famous monk who was at some famous temple, and then he goes out and tries to locate it. And he lives in Shanghai, and these are day trips or week trips for him. Now that the lockdown in Shanghai is over, he's able to travel again. And he was writing about looking for a temple on Drum Mountain, Gushan, famous monastery, and he couldn't find it. And he was writing about the heat, walking through the heat. And in years past, he's been there, and there was always water. There was plenty of water, but this year there's no water. And tea, even the tea plantations, the teas are burning up, and farmers are losing their tea plants. So as he was describing the walk, and he said, I encountered bad ghost thoughts in my mind that wanted me to try a shortcut down to the trail that I was looking for. And there were steps carved into the mountains, but they were covered with leaves, which makes them slippery. And his description of bad ghost thoughts, I thought, yeah, that's it. I know those ghost thoughts, bad ghost thoughts that come in and say, oh, go ahead. You'll save some time. It's quicker. And you might discover the temple down there. And so as he was writing about that, my friend was reporting what was happening in his mind as he was frustrated at not being able to locate the temple he was looking for. I thought, boy, I sure hope he doesn't listen to those bad ghost thoughts. And can you recognize them when they rise, and then what do you do with them? Do you fight with them? Do you counter them with, another lawyer type argument in your mind. No, you might do that, but then again, you might not. Is it kind of a Libra experience of a scales, the balance going up and down and up and down, and you don't know who's going to win? Well, luckily, my friend, the walking temple tour, walking ancient temple discovery tour journalist, did not listen to his bad ghost thoughts and didn't risk, by yourself, walking by yourself, one false step, you step down on a stone carved indentation and there's leaves and they're slippery and you boom, and your head hits the rock behind you and you lose your footing and you wind up a few minutes later with a sprained ankle and you're off the trail and nobody knows where you are. Yeah, that's the result of listening to bad ghost thoughts. Instead, he doesn't, and he gets to a place and he sees a mountain in the background, in the distance, and he sees a cliff face on this side. He compares it to an ancient painting of where the monastery was. He realizes that's the spot, and there's no trace of the monastery. It's gone without a trace, because he compares the landscape in front of him with a painting, and sure enough, the painting was painted from life, and he found the spot. No temple, even the monastery, is gone. Imagine impermanence like that. So our wisdom, just like the agada herb that can cure all kinds of poisons, and like the science of toxicology, right? So too, wisdom can get rid of ignorance, the absence of wisdom. Do we recognize bad ghost thoughts when they rise? And do we have a way of purging them from the mind? Remember we talked about Master Yongjia, who was praising the wisdom sword a couple lectures ago. And so this is this interesting topic here I wanted to share with everybody. In our Chan school, we are, Chan has 5 different schools, and Chan is Zen, right? We know that word. So traditionally in China, the Chan school had 5 different schools, and the Rinzai and the Soto, the Linji and the Caodong and the Yunmen and the Fayan and the Weiyang. So the wisdom eye is the Zhiyan, and our school, through Master Empty Cloud to Master Shenhua, was called the Weiyang school. It may be the least known of the 5, but one thing that unifies, pretty much Linji not so much, but the thing that unifies the 5 schools is the use or the non-use of the Huatou, Chinese word which means literally word head, but it's kind of like meditation topic if you translated it. And the meditation topic is a method, it's a technique that you use as you are meditating. You take this topic and you apply it to the flow of your consciousness, particularly language. And when the verb that they use is called can, so you can huatou. You look into your meditation topic. That's how we always translated it. When Master Hua would say, yao can huatou, zhao gu huatou, to pay attention to your meditation topic. Now, so that much is clear. Is this mindfulness? Partly. Is it compassion, contemplation? Nope. It's a method, it's a technique of which mindfulness is one. Vipassana? Nope. It's the other side of Chan. So when Master Hua would say, what is Chan? He would say, well, it's 2 things. It's Jing, Lu, and it's Si Wei Xiu, he would say. And that's the Chinese for zhi and guan. So, okay, well, zhi and guan and sivui xiu and jinglu are both Chinese. What is it? So, well, okay, let's look deeper. It's shamatha and vipassana. But that's Indian language. What is it in English, please? So sometimes translated as calming and contemplating. Slow down. Hello? Right. When we say what is Zen, what is Chan, according to the Chinese, it's two things. Two techniques, two different ways to use the mind while we meditate to get the aim of Chan. And what is the aim of Chan meditation? It's Mingxin Jianxing, to light up your mind and to see your nature the way it is, to see my Buddha nature the way it is. That's what we're doing when we do Chan. That's the point of the exercise of Zen meditation, is to Mingxin and Jianxing. So the schools that grew in Chan, starting from Bodhidharma on, of which the sixth patriarch was number 6, right? Those schools look into the mind, and they use tools, techniques for doing that. The two that developed and mostly closely identified with Chan were calming the mind and contemplating thoughts. That's what we mean when we say Jing Lü and Sivui Xiu. Jing Lü is the calming, shamatha. Sivui Xiu is the contemplating, or vipassana. Different uses of the mind. So this huatou, word head, meditation topic, technique, says the one that got used most often in pretty much all the Chan schools is the one that goes Nian Fo Shi Shui. That's the topic. Who is reciting the Buddha's name? Who is mindful of the Buddha? Or in short, simply who? Who is doing that? Who's in there so busy? Who's so worried? Who is raising up those bad ghost thoughts, telling you to take the shortcut down the mountain over the slippery rock trail? Yeah, who is that? And what do? You look into that. You investigate it. You want to find out, in fact, who is doing it. So, how do you do it? Nian Fo Shi Shui. Who's reciting the Buddha's name? I don't recite the Buddha's name. Am I supposed to before I can do the huatou? So, why am I bringing this up? Excuse me one second. I'm bringing it up because San Huatou, looking into the meditation topic, is a challenge for beginning meditators. Explaining it to beginning meditators is a challenge. And yet, the real deal, the real Chan school, the Zen school in China, starts there. Master Hua would say, okay, what are we doing? Look into your meditation topic. Nian Fo Shi Shui, Can. Look into it. He was being absolutely faithful to the tradition, which has produced how many awakened men and women over the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years that the huatou technique has been used. Since the Tang, just before the Tang, when Bodhidharma came. So 1400 years, this technique has been alive in China, and it works. It allows you to discover where language and thoughts arise into the mind, and you pursue it, and you transform consciousness to wisdom when it's skillfully done. But the stories that grew up around it was this process of tan, this process of looking into the huatou would take forever. You'd have to, 行住坐卧不离这个. walking, standing, sitting, lying down. Don't leave your huatou for an instant. And all the stories about people who would bang into the pillar at the edge of the Chan Hall, holding the roof up because they were so single-mindedly focused on that question, who, that they wouldn't even notice where they were going. Master Hua would say, did I eat? I forget. I don't even know. I'm busy looking at my huatou. Did I put my robes on today? I don't know. I'm busy looking at my huatou. Am I still breathing? Am I sleeping? I'm just looking at day and night, 24/7. And at that intense point where doubts arise about whether heaven is still up above and earth down below, you can get enlightened. That's the way the story goes. So, all right, so far so good. What's the point? The point is, as I was looking into Master Yongjia's Song of Enlightenment, Song of Awakening, and sharing 2 weeks ago the other lecture series that I'm doing on the Song of Enlightenment, I realized that Master Yongjia, talking about the wisdom sword, 大江夫平回剑，般若风息金刚焰，非但能摧外道心，早从落却天魔丹。Ah, the mighty hero holds aloft his wisdom blade. From its adamantine point, from its blazing Vajra edge comes adamantine flames. And it can chase away the Wai Dao, the non-Buddhists and the wrong sects. Demons of the heavens look for a place to hide, it says. So that wisdom sword, as I thought about it, and we described it as, the wisdom sword, and showed Manjushri Bodhisattva with this wisdom sword. Guanyin Bodhisattva doesn't have her wisdom sword. She's got a lotus flower and a willow branch and a vase, much gentler. Manjushri, Ping Hui Jian, he holds the wisdom sword up and slashes through falseness. Bad ghost thoughts don't stand a chance against Manjushri with his wisdom sword. So I thought, that's the huatou. There it is. When I think of a sword, now swords, maybe that violence doesn't appeal to you. So how about a Vajra wisdom broom? I can deal with a broom. What does a broom do? It sweeps clean. Dust on the floor, in my case, birdseed on the floor. Take the broom and sweep it clean. Yeah, and false thought gone. Bad ghost thought gone. Something doubts, self-doubts come in. This is a waste of time. What am I doing? Who do you know who got enlightened? Sweep the Vajra broom, and you have done what? You've used the huatou. Same. So the function of the huatou, which is kind of hard to grasp for a lot of people because of the language of Nian Fo Shi Shui, who's mindful of the Buddha, which is by far the most common meditation topic. Not the only one by any means. There's lots of them. Master Empty Cloud was given a huatou by his first teacher, which was, who's dragging this corpse around? This, what is it? Shei Tuo some, I don't know how it goes in Chinese, but it's in English, it's who's dragging this corpse? This thing is already dead, so who's inside dragging it around? You look into that one, okay? Bad ghost thoughts. So, if the language of the huatou gets in the way or confuses you, simply translate it into a broom. If you're born in the industrial era, call it a Vajra vacuum cleaner. You suck up the bad ghost thought, the false thought, the wangxiang, the doubts, the arrogance, that's the opposite of doubts. Suck them up, just clean them, sweep them clean, right? So we could have a Vajra delete key if you're a keyboard person. Vajra delete key, hit that key and you return the mind to the pure, clean empty space like emptiness of the true mind, which then, because nature doesn't do vacuums, it fills again. But it's the function of not accepting the presence of delusion as fundamental that is working. That's how it works, is you return the mind to something that pre-exists false thoughts and attachments. And you recognize, wow, there is actually a true bottom line. There is a true ground of wisdom in my mind that is not me, and it's not mine, and it's also not afraid, and it's also not possessed by desire, and it's not made happier when I get stuff, and it's fundamentally not sick or bad. It's none of those things. Those are all one half of a dilemma, one half of a duality, and both are not the real thing. And every time I sweep my Vajra broom or swing my Vajra sword, I discover, I get just a moment of stillness, which I recognize as actually my real home. Shifu would call it Bandi Fengguang, the wind and the light of my fundamental nature. And that's the function. That's the Huatou. And the Huatou can be a thing. It can be that broom. And of course, you say, do you have a broom in your mind? What's wrong with you? Have you talked to a therapist? Maybe you should talk to someone. It's just the Vajra sword, the Vajra broom, the Vajra delete key is no more real than any other thought, but being happy is also a thought. It's an emotion, but there's a concept there. And being sad is also a concept. It's accompanied by feelings, so it's a profound one. But all those things are illusory. They are not me or mine, and yet they make a huge difference. Just the way if you eat nettles, nettles is a good tea, but if you eat a nettle, it's going to destroy your throat. If you eat spinach, it doesn't. So you do make distinctions. So let's distinguish wholesome and unwholesome. And that's the work of the Vajra sword. Okay, got it. Thank you for that. Chan meditation advice. One more. Are we ready? Next one. 如来无有上，亦无余等者，一切无能比，是故难知喻。The Tathagata is unsurpassed. He is without peer. He is incomparable. Thus meeting him is most rare. Yes. So, Tsangkuilin, Forest of Remorse, Bodhisattva, says, Rulai, Tathagata, has no shang, above, nothing surpasses him. He has no one above him. I, also, wu yu dang, no with equal, is beyond compare, non-parallel. So, ichie wu neng bi, all things are unable to match the Buddha. Shigu nan shiyu. That's why he is hard to meet. You won't meet anybody like the Buddha. Upon the earth, below the sky, the Buddha has no peer. In 10 directions, everywhere, he is beyond compare. I've searched throughout this whole wide world, and now I can declare, you'll never find a wiser one than Buddha anywhere. 天上天下无如佛，十方世界亦无比。世间所有我今见，一切无有如佛者。Yep. There we go. Okay, how about that? Those are the last 2 verses by Forest of Remorse. And that last one's kind of generic. Praise the Buddha. Yep, that's a real praise. Nothing compares to the Buddha. Yeah, I could go for that. We have some things to share today that I won't bring out right this moment, but momentarily. And I wanted to talk about toxicology, poison, the agada herb that our Bodhisattva mentioned. It's contemplating the reality of COVID and what it does. We have a national hero in Dr. Anthony Fauci in America. Talk about somebody when he is judged in the afterlife, how his blessings and virtue are going to guarantee a wholesome rebirth. When AIDS came about and this plague, people were dying just in horrible ways, in great numbers, and nobody knew why. Dr. Fauci was a younger public health epidemiologist, and he was challenged by the AIDS activists back in the 80s? They said, get out of your ivory tower and come down, we're dying, help us. And he did. He discarded the available knowledge and got down and discovered things that allowed him to set aside the lengthy, tedious trials before drugs were. The FDA at the time had these protocols that required years and years of research before they tried a new drug. And he set those aside and gave the drugs to people and saved lives. And this led to the therapies now that allow people to survive the AIDS epidemic. He also, Ebola, he was involved in that research, and then guided us through the pandemic of COVID-19. And I think he also worked on SARS, if I'm not mistaken. And while there was a terrible toll, very quickly we were able to develop life-saving vaccines. So, as I say, this man is going off to a good rebirth for all of the lives that he has saved with his skills. And so toxicology, I was contemplating, because I heard this Dr. Fauci is going to retire finally at an advanced age. He's earned his rest. The reality of COVID talks about a poisoned world. That was what prompted my thinking about this. And what is COVID? It says unprotected by a vaccine or a mask, simply breathing can kill you. And our world has become one in which breathing air that contains the virus will kill us. It definitely will. COVID will turn our lungs into unbreathable water as our immune system works so hard to expel what it meets. And it's a terrible, awful death. And so sad that so many of our elders in particular have been taken by this disease. So, poison world. What else? We have water. We've created water that can contain lead coming out of the pipes and will destroy the mind, the brains of those who drink it. Lead is du, it's a toxin, it's a poison, and it will definitely produce huge, awful side effects, particularly in children whose brains are still developing. So we've created a world where water is undrinkable, and yet we need it. Isn't that sad? We've created a world where land is becoming desertification, particularly here in Australia. Lots of land goes out of production, out of crop production because of drought. And so worldwide we're experiencing this now. So Earth has become toxic. And then you think about how fire has dried trees in the California mountains, in the Sierras. Trees, this forest ranger reported not long ago that trees can survive as long as they have 5% moisture in the tree. If trees lose that last 5%, they die where they stand. And we have a monastery down in the Santa Cruz Redwood Vihara, and there are redwoods now that are approaching 5% moisture and less. We just had a rain in California last week, which helps a bit, but the crisis is not just 1 year, it's been many years now of decreasing moisture in the trees. And trees that have been alive on the planet for centuries, millennia, are on the brink of drying and dying. So look at the world that we're living in now. It has become, for the water, for the earth, for the fire, and for the wind, it's unsustainable for humanity. And whether or not humans caused it, we call it anthropocentric climate change, and climate change that is, it's not anthropocentric, anthropogenic, right? Human-caused climate change. We don't even have to point at ourselves and blame ourselves. We just have to act and say a world that cannot sustain human life or the life of the species around us that's a call for action. It's time now to pay attention to that. That is much more important than maximizing profits for our corporations or for struggling with others for political power. Or for sending troops across a border of a country nearby to claim it as ours. All those things are unimportant if the earth, the air, the fire, and the water cannot sustain human life anymore. So, my goodness, this idea of an agada, the panacea herb that purges all poisons, what is that? Well, of course, it's Buddha Dharma, the forest of repentance, forest of remorse bodhisattva, is saying that the Buddha Dharma and the wisdom of the Buddha Dharma is like that herb, like that medicine that can counter all poisons. So, boy oh boy, do we need that wisdom in the world that we've created now. How amazing. And this is taking it one step further. This is kind of, what do we want to say? If we look at it strictly, and this is the AMA, the American Medical Association. Does Australia have an AMA, Australian Medical Association? This is not a popular opinion, but the food that makes up the ordinary American diet, and I will say the ordinary Australian diet, is killing us. more than any other single cause. I'm talking about cancer, I'm talking about heart disease and diabetes and high blood pressure brought on by the standard American, standard Australian diet. Food manufactured by factories is not healthful. Our view of the food pyramid that you saw in your high school classroom, your grade school classroom, if you flip it over, that food pyramid is an advertisement for the meat and the dairy industry. And people are thinking, where's this monk going today? Well, I was thinking about our verse from Tsangkuilin Pusa, Forest of Remorse. And he's talking about toxins, poisons. And somebody pointed out that in 2003, I gave a talk down in Los Angeles at the VegSource Healthy Lifestyle Expo. And I wanted to share that with everybody. And first of all, let's do that. I'll play it. It's a video. It's only 8 minutes long, so I don't. I'll let you watch video within a video. It's available on YouTube if anybody wants to see it directly, but I'll play it here. And 8 minutes from now, I'll be back to tie this into today's talk. Here we go. Going to share my screen, and then I'm going to optimize for video. Ready? Here we go.
First of all, I'd like to say how grateful I am to be invited into this community and to have the opportunity, along with my fellow panelists today, to speak about compassionate eating from the point of view of religion is, I think, might become the favorite part of this conference. Now, is everybody enjoying this conference as much as I have so far? I thought so. Let's move to the presentation, if we can. We'll see how technology serves us today. All right. Why eat a plant-based diet? These are familiar reasons. Health and longevity, environmental issues, thanks to John Robbins and the others who've certainly heightened my awareness of those issues. Global hunger and the distribution or maldistribution of foodstuffs. And then we have two items that, from a Buddhist point of view, are the foundation of why we do this, why we would want to eat compassionately and wisely. From the Buddhist point of view, you start out with the idea that we're all connected, that interdependence is a fact. It's not a theory. And yet, the world that we find ourselves is often a broken world. So there are causes and there are effects, and I'm going to talk a bit about that. The other point is great compassion. Buddhism is certainly not unique in this regard. We're going to hear from the other spokespersons this morning about other religious points of view. But these are the two that I wanted to go into today. Cause and effect. There's a teaching from a sutra called the Flower Adornment, the Hua Yan Jing, the Avatamsaka Sutra, that says, if one kills, there are two retributions. Well, one is you can lose your human body. That's what they say. I'm giving you the straight stuff, the raw milk right from the soybean, right? The karma, the action, and the results of killing beings brings on two retributions. One, a short life, and two, much illness. Now, likewise, if you cherish life, if you foster life, if you create the conditions for other beings to flourish, then what happens is your lifespan extends and you're healthy. So it works both ways. Here's an illustration. This is a poem from a Chan master, meditation master in China in the Tang Dynasty, whose name is Cloud of Vows. And the illustration, we're going to get to that in a minute. There's a cause and an effect in our picture, in our painting. It goes, for countless years the bitter stew of hate goes boiling on. Its vengeful broth is ocean deep, impossible to calm. To learn the cause of so much conflict, terror, and that's a word that we're exquisitely sensitive to, green, orange, red. To learn the cause of so much conflict, terror, hate, and war, listen to the cries at midnight by the butcher's door. Okay, now, where do wars come from? Wars come from, now this is principle, okay? There's an invisible cause and effect, but I think if we stretch our minds, we can see the connection. If we kill the being whose life we force from its body, perhaps for our dinner table, perhaps for some other reason, certainly is not willing to do that. I wouldn't want to give up my thigh for somebody else's lunch, right? And when we do that, there's a hatred. There's an emotional, spiritual reaction to that, which is a hatred. And that hatred is kind of like a toxin in the body. It doesn't go anywhere. It just is there in space. When that becomes, when there's a lot of that all at once, the result boils over in immediate aggression and antipathy, which can then lead to war. So that's the principle. Now, is that how it works in reality? That's what this picture shows us, which I think is a lovely illustration. It's an ugly illustration of the actual principle. Taking the life of the pig can lead to the result of bigger conflict. Okay, cause and effect is one of the main Buddhist principal reasons for eating a vegetarian diet. What about great compassion? This is called Tong Ti Da Bei in Chinese, and the idea is, literally in the Chinese, it's same body, great compassion. The same body that we share. And this is based, again, on very practical, pragmatic vision of the way things are, which is to say the solid parts, the liquid parts, the warm parts, the passages, the air parts in my body are not different in any way from those of any creature that incarnates in a body. So we share that same substance. Now, there's also something else we share. And again, this is maybe Buddhist specific, but we call it by other names and other traditions. There's an awakened nature that we share that in the teaching says it's not different from being to being. We cover it over, we uncover it, it's more awake, it's less awake, but it's the same. So in the midst of that interdependent, connected universe, somebody who is awake to that compassion wants to eat in a way that liberates living beings. So in the Buddhist tradition, we have this practice called liberating life, where we buy animals that are on their way to slaughter, do a ceremony, and chant sutras or the names of awakened beings and let them go. So there's a sutra called the Netta Brahma. It goes deeper into it. And this is, again, straight from the soybean milk. All male beings have been my fathers. All female beings have been my mothers. The interdependence. There is not one being in the six destinies who has not given birth to me in past lives. Hence, all beings have been my parents. Thus, when a person kills and eats any of these beings, by so doing, he slaughters my parents. Now, this is the vision of the Buddhas, awakened sages. Further, that person kills a body that was once my own, for all elemental earth and water have previously served as my body. All elemental fire and water have comprised my physical substance. Therefore, I will always cultivate the practice of liberating beings, and in every life be reborn in the eternally abiding Dharma, and teach others to liberate beings as well. Now, is that strong medicine? Any connection? There's a sense that that thing on the plate that's been French fried, parboiled, fricasseed, baked, steamed, stuffed, actually is part of my own substance. The idea is to see it as no different. And that being the case, I would wish long life to my mother and to everyone else's father. So I would choose not to make that as my foodstuff. Here's another illustration. This is one of the resources that Chinese Buddhism has in such abundance that, because it's been in Chinese language, has not been available until we started translating. This is a lovely poem that I enjoy. The picture is a hermit, the kind-hearted hermit. Notice there's a deer in the background, and the hermit is sweeping away the deer's tracks in the snow so that the hunters the next morning won't find it. Around this lonely mountaintop, a myriad peaks revolve. I've come to cultivate ascetics, disciplined resolve. I take my broom and sweep away the deer's tracks in the snow. The deer passed by, but in the morning, hunters will not know. Great compassion. single substance. So if we see those creatures with whom we share those bodies as kin, as related, as connected, then it's much harder to see them as something that we eat for lunch, to see them as a dish or a plate or succulent veal or whatever those names we give it. Okay, so that's the fundamental idea.
That's the fundamental idea. Boy, that was 20 years ago. Wow, do I look different. So that was a conference on plant-based eating. And if we think of it in terms of today's text, where Forest of Repentance, Forest of Remorse, Bodhisattva says, just like the agada, the panacea herb, can get rid of all poisons, the Buddha's wisdom is the same. It gets rid of no wisdom. It gets rid of ignorance. So in that, and of course that's an analogy for what happens in the mind. If we think of what is wisdom, well, how do you know which thought that rises in the mind needs to be sucked up by your Vajra vacuum cleaner, swept away by your Vajra broom, sliced by your Vajra sword, or challenged by the Huatou, Nianfo Shi Shui, or whatever Huatou you're using? How do you know? How do you tell? I got an answer for you. Boy, oh boy, at no extra cost. Wait, there's more. What is it? How do you know? How do you judge? And there's wisdom knows the difference. What is wisdom? Wisdom knows the difference. Wisdom reflects. 分别心, discriminating analysis, also knows the difference, but that's the sixth consciousness. Wisdom reflects. Wisdom is like a mirror. It functions like a mirror. And what does it do? It looks at the thought as it rises. The thought rises up, as it will. Thoughts, the mind cognizes thoughts just the same way the eye sees sights. So here's a thought in your mind. You say, does that thought involve competition? Does that thought involve conflict? Does that thought require me to struggle with someone? If so, sweep it away. It's going to lead to affliction, and I don't need more affliction. Why? Fighting. In there, competing, struggling, trying to win, fear of losing. That's what leads to... I won't go there. So, yeah, loser. So what do? You sweep it up. That's an afflicted thought. I don't want it. What do you do instead? If you don't want to sweep it away, you can replace it with what? With yielding. I let you win. I step back. Inaction, simply wu wei, doing nothing. Instead of struggling to win, instead of competing, instead of fighting, you just let it go. There you go. So that's skill. That's wisdom's function. Telling the difference, you reflect, you say, that's a zheng xin, 那个念头, oh, 要我争夺, 争第一, I'm going to fight for number one. Nope, not going to do it. Did it before, didn't like the flavor, didn't like the result. Reflecting on it, I'm going to, Vajra vacuum cleaner, done. Okay, another one. Oh, this thought rises. And it goes, look at that. Oh, boy. And greed arises. Yep, that's the nature of it. We have that in our nature. We can. I watched the lorikeets outside. Oh, my goodness. The lorikeets, these little birds, they're so pretty, but they are insatiable, and they want it all. I have 4 feeding stations here where I put food out. The same bird seed. And if there are 2 lorikeets, they will take 2 of the feeding stations. They separate. So if there are 4 lorikeets, they'll take all the feeding stations, 1 per station. So none of the other birds that are waiting, patiently, sometimes impatiently waiting for the lorikeets to leave, they take it all. They're greedy. And then they fight. They're bullies too. So I tell my mind, don't be a lorikeet that is insatiably greedy. Instead, what do? Well, first thing, suck it up, sweep it away. Don't want that thought, because it will lead to no satisfaction, no happiness. Even if I got all of it myself, I wouldn't be happy. So I know that, I let it go. I practice generosity instead. That's skillfully reflecting with wisdom, and the affliction of greed is gone. Next one, seeking. Wow, is that, that's so destructive. The idea of discontent. I'm well set up, I have so much, I have relationships, I have just swimming in stuff, well-being, material, and yet something itches, and I gotta scratch that itch. And you can't quite get there, so the itch, and you reach out for more, and you lose what you had. That's called seeking. That's the source of affliction. That thought rises, and you sweep your Vajra broom, you slice your Vajra sword, and you say, nope, I have enough, I am grateful, share the blessings, hallelujah. And you avoid disaster. Your relationships stay solid, your heart opens up, you feel gratitude, right? Not only do I have enough, I'm grateful for what I have, and I want to share it with others. So, this is the function. Wisdom reflects with no fighting, no greed, no seeking. Instead, contentment and generosity and sharing and yielding. All right, so selfishness, selfish thoughts, thoughts of wanting to get all the good stuff for myself, thoughts of dishonesty to cling to what I have. When challenged, you lie about it, right? Instead, unselfish, service, and honesty. That's wisdom's reflection. Those 6 guidelines that Master Hua gave us are truly, truly the way you tell, as the thoughts rise, whether or not to follow them or to let them go. Yeah. And behind that, these are real Buddhist, this is real Buddhist Dharma methodologies. This will save us. This is the real stuff. This is Buddhist therapy at its most effective, right on the mind ground where we become gardeners. We become skillful gardeners of the mind ground. You betcha. What happens when we do that? Well, we can become Buddhas, but more importantly, take a look here. Share my screen. I'm learning to do that. Here we go. Kindness doesn't only make us healthier, it can actually slow aging. A new study shows loving kindness meditation may actually help us postpone aging. A new study out by the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, small, preliminary, but given the known benefits of kindness, it says the researcher gathered 150 middle-aged volunteers, spread them into 3 groups. One group went through a 6-week mindfulness meditation training involving weekly hour-long classes and 20 minutes of daily at-home practice. Now, the mindfulness meditation was just standard vipassana, compassion. Another group received similar training in Tsubei Guan Metta Bhavana, it's called. It encourages you to open your heart to others. And a third group was a control group. At the beginning and the end of the experiment, all the volunteers had their telomeres measured. Our poor translators, I should have warned you. Can you translate telomere? I have no idea. Measure your telomere. Telomeres are little caps at the end of chromosomes that protect the DNA from daily wear and tear. As we grow older, the telomeres get shorter and shorter. They make them a good proxy for aging. The slower your telomeres wear down, the longer you're likely to live. While all three groups had shorter telomeres at the end of the 12-week study period of meditation practice, the loving kindness meditation group lost the least. The control group lost the most. But the mindfulness meditators are in the middle. Practicing loving kindness meditation for 6 weeks seemed to have slowed the aging a little. Okay? Now, he says, yes, there are lots of reasons to take it with a grain of salt. It was a small study. The meditators were willing. If skeptical people were measured, it might change, might have different results. But all the same, the point is that training the mind to kindness can definitely lengthen our life. Isn't that interesting? I go for it. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Some of the, there's also evidence that compassion can actually enhance your appearance. That's another, we'll look for that research later. Now, thank you all for hanging with me for this time, this lecture. We looked at 2 verses. Next week is who? Next week is Jingjin Lin Pusa, a bodhisattva whose name is Forest of Vigor, Forest of Action. And he's going, should we do let's do a quick preview of bodhisattvas to come. Forest of Vigor, what does he say? He says, dharmas have no difference among them. Nobody can truly know them. Buddhas alone share this knowledge. Their wisdom is ultimate. The way the metal gold and the color gold in nature are not different. Dharmas and non-dharmas are the same, not different in substance and nature. Living beings and no living beings, both are neither true nor real. So it is with the nature of dharmas. In reality, they do not exist. Oh boy, that is some profound stuff. We're going to get there next week. Again, it's it's a bodhisattva kneeling in front of the Buddha in the heaven of the Suyama, in the palace of the Suyama heaven, and praising the Buddha for his wisdom. And he's also choosing to demonstrate one aspect of his own cultivation that he hopes to learn more about for sure, because these bodhisattvas, once they're done with their praises, they go back to their worlds and rescue living beings with whom they have a contract to save, right? So, yeah. Okay, what have we got here? There it is, telomere. Rei Li. Okay, or Duan Li or Rei Li. Duan Li. Telomere. Good. Thank you for that. We got it. Some announcements here. Going to share my screen. I want people to know. Here we got it. It's, yeah, that's the problem. Okay. When I go to full screen, I lose control here. Here at the Gold Coast Dharma Realm, we are engaged in a Guanyin retreat, and I want people to know that we have pioneered the very first all-English Pumanpin, Universal Door Chapter of the Lotus Sutra, the Guanxin Pusa Pumanpin, Universal Door Chapter of Guanyin Bodhisattva. If you go to this Zoom link, I will copy it. Can I copy it that way? Let's see here. Copy. look, okay. If I'm going to copy it and paste it into the chat box here and then ask Jerry to, Jerry, would you share that with others, please? Okay, that will take you out to the schedule for our week-long Guanyin Bodhisattva session. And that session is, yesterday was the first day, and it was the first time, as far as I know, in history that we have done an entirely English language Pu Manpian. And boy, oh boy, it was really nice to listen to. And if you look at that schedule, I need to show you how to find the schedule. Hold on. If you go out to, 1 second, please. Back, here we go. I'm going to go to GCDR, gcdr.org.au. Oops, typing needs help. There we go. Gold Coast Dharma Realm. There we are. Go to events and go to upcoming. And events, see this drop-down menu right there, and upcoming, and that will show you what time of the day and night you can find the English language Pu Manpian, Universal Door Chapter. And do give it a listen. It's really has great promise for helping folks understand what they're reciting as they recite the Pu Manpian. Very, very nice to listen to. And you're invited to join in. You can. The tunes, the melodies are easy to learn, and the text is on the screen. So there you go. You'll find that. And while I'm right here in Safari on my Mac, I want to show people dharmaradio.org. dharmaradio.org, and encourage you. Maybe you can type that into the chat box, into YouTube. So here on Dharma Radio, you see our teacher and a radio and good karma music. Good karma music is a way to get some Dharma music into your life, including 3 songs by a Catholic abbot, Benedictine monk Cyprian Concilio, who was the prior at New Camaldoli, and New Camaldoli Benedictine Hermitage. And Father Cyprian gave us 3 of his songs that are wonderful songs. There he is, good-looking monk, which we will be happy to give to you for a good deed. Do a good deed. Tell us what it was that you did. And you can choose from Father Cyprian songs, my Dharma Radio CD, Buddhist Stories, or Brian Conroy's collection of Buddhist stories, which are just amazing. Take a look here. Here they are. The Light That Never Dies. Oh boy. Give those a listen. What you do is you tell us, give us your name, where you live, type in your story, and then we can read those stories. So can the world. I want to share with you one of the best ones. Here's a story from Good Karma Music from Fayetteville, Arkansas. I once found a frog underneath my car near the wheel on a rainy day, so I let it move aside before driving the car. It didn't get hurt. After that, I would normally check the place near the wheels before driving when I park for a long time, just to make sure there were no insects or animals under the car. By doing so, many insects have been saved since then. I feel this is a way to help me enhance my compassion, and it doesn't bring much inconvenience to me. Boy, I would say Send music to Peter. Well done, buddy. That is definitely a story worth an album from our collection. So there you are. If you go to Instagram, anybody who is on Instagram, and do find Good Karma Music, subscribe, and you can get every week. We'll send you a new story from our collection of wonderful good karma stories, good deeds done in trade for music and stories. All right, how's that? Good indeed. Let's see. At this time, I would like to invite the monks from Berkeley Monastery to let us know what's going on. We are gradually moving towards returning to our full schedule after COVID. Bit by bit, we're adding events. So, Jinwei or Jinchuan Shi, you want to let us know what's going on? Here's the website.
Okay, Amitofo, can you hear me?
Yep, sure can.
Okay, so first we have tomorrow morning, Great Compassion Mantra Dedication of Merit. So I'll begin at 6:30 a.m. in California. And this has been going on now for what, maybe 2 years? Since the beginning of COVID, maybe even 3 years. So this is the whole, you could say, worldwide community of practitioners reciting the Great Compassion Mantra on a daily basis. And usually we get to almost 1/3 recitations a month. So a lot of people are putting their hearts into, as Dharma Master was sharing about great compassion. So if you would like to join, please click the Zoom link at 6:30 a.m. or join via YouTube. If you keep going down, we have our online ceremonies starting up again. We had took a little bit of a break because we were at a Guanyin session at DRBU, but now we're back at Berkeley Monastery, and so people can join our morning and evening chantings at a regular time. Keep going down. There's a DRBU is hosting a special event with one of the professors talking about Jedi training and connecting it to cultivation. So if you are a Star Wars fan, this might be an event you don't want to miss. Keep going. We have Dharma Master's lectures on the Song of Enlightenment every Friday at 12:30 or 1 o'clock p.m., 1 to 2 p.m. And Stephen Tainer has also started his meditation class on Wednesday evenings at 7:30 on Zoom. Yeah, we don't have too many classes in person at the moment, but I know many people really enjoy learning from Stephen Tainer. So if you would like to learn meditation, please join in. And maybe one more is this DRBU is open for applications for those who would like to, investigate wisdom full time for 2 years or 4 years. It's definitely a worthy endeavor. So you can find a link there to apply, or just come and visit and see what the classes are like before you make a decision. They have a really good team of people helping prospective students. And it's just worth taking a look because it's a time right now where there's a lot of, I would say, things in the world that can lead to affliction, and actually being with a community of good friends to, actually I'll just share a quick story. We have one of the men here at Redwood Vihara. We went up for the Guanyin session, and he was, after the session, hanging out at the tea place where all the students were talking to each other. He said, wow, most college guys, when they hang out together, they don't talk about wholesome stuff. These guys are talking about like supporting each other's spiritual practices. This is a very wonderful place. So yeah.
Amen.
Other than that,
Amen.
amen. Yeah. He's sitting here with me right now at Redwood Vihara. I can have him give his own testimony. Yeah, so that's probably the main events. And we're, as Dharma Master said, looking into how we can open up to our in-person events again at Berkeley Buddhist Monastery or at Redwood Vihara. So please stay tuned.
All right. Appreciate that for the report. And we are, okay. We're now moving into spring here in the Gold Coast and moving into autumn at the Berkeley Monastery and Northern California and wherever the Northern Hemisphere. So it's time for, autumn is always that time when you start to think, winter is on the way. Maybe it's time for me to get a little serious about what I want to study, what I want to learn, and what I want to give, how I want to serve. And if we can be like the Buddha and distribute the agada herb, the busi yao, this panacea of purifying toxins, wisdom is the best one. The world you're not wrong if you say the world is full of ignorance. We hear about it every day and we feel it through our skin, through the air. Something's wrong. We're speeding up. We're hurtling down the road in the wrong direction. Well, learn some wisdom. You can, wherever that path takes you towards wisdom, that's the plan to make now. A lot of people are suffering from kind of apocalypse anxiety, from the sense that we're done for. That once the oceans start to rise, that once the crops burn up, once the water's gone, what is humanity going to do? Well, that can be crippling, paralyzing, and instead start with the mind ground. Start with my next thought of fighting and greed and seeking and selfishness and self-benefit and dishonesty, and use whatever method works. The Vajra broom, the Vajra vacuum, the Vajra sword, or the Huato, and slice it back and say, no, my mind actually has a place of refuge that is quiet, pure, clean, well-lit, tidy, and that's where, from that place, is where I start to serve living beings. That's where I find the clarity on our unity, on our oneness, and our relatedness. And that's where compassion rises. And that's the motive to get out and get involved. So before we end, we need to dedicate merit. And I want to do it with a mantra that's identified with Medicine Buddha. Medicine Buddha gives us this ancient chant, which when we chant it, that fear goes away, because this is pure light, and fear is dark. Light banishes the darkness. Here we go. Make a wish, send it out with that expansive, clean, wholesome, unafraid place of the mind, and dedicate from there. Ready? Here we go.
Arahate Samyak Sambuddhaya.
going to do one more thing. Set the banjo down. I've got a handbell. Going to bring up image of the Buddhas from City of 10,000 Buddhas and invite you to bow with me. Here we go. First bow. Second bow. And third bow. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. Alrighty, swing that wisdom sword. Amitofo. See you all next week. That'll do it for us for today. Amitofo. Bye-bye, everybody.